Welcome to episode 19 of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast, a bonus episode presented by Novig. I'm your host, Jonny Lazarus, joined by my good friends, longtime NHL reporter Arthur Staple and Stanley Cup champion Mike Rupp. As you're listening, I want you to stop what you're doing right now. Go to Twitter if you have it and tweet at Rupper17. Happy birthday, because he did not tell us it was his birthday yesterday. We all agree. None of us would do the same thing. Like, we wouldn't tell anyone it's our birthday either, but it was very odd scrolling through Instagram stories last night and finding out it was your birthday. So happy birthday, Rupper. Hope you had a good one.
You.
And it's good to be back with you guys again.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, boys. Just a pretty quiet one, but that's fine. We went out to dinner this past weekend and kind of had the, celebration. So, just getting older, you know.
What are you, 39?
I wish, buddy. I wish. I would say I wish I felt like I was 39, but when I was 39, I felt kind of like I do right now too. So, I'm 46, man, but feeling good. The mind is young, and got a bunch of birthday wishes from that post that ended up going out. I was like, he couldn't wait. It happened a half an hour before I was done with NHL Network for the day, and I was just like, oh, now, I don't know. I always just feel weird like that, but I'm weird, so whatever.
I miss 46.
What'd you say?
I said I miss 46, man. I feel like I wish I was feeling 46.
I'm hoping I see.
Anyway, sorry,
Johnny, hoping he sees it.
Yeah. But we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we prefaced yesterday. Today is a voicemail-driven show, but we should talk about Tom Fitzgerald's press conference today. Not sure if people had time to send a voicemail about that, so we just wanted to touch on that topic before we get into voicemails, and then the callers will drive the rest of the show. So first things first, I'll just kick it over to one of you guys, but I'll say I never find these GM press conferences to be anything of interest. It seems like a lot of wasted space or wasted air. If I'm a Devils fan, I learned nothing today that I didn't know already, and I wouldn't feel any better than I did yesterday. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it just seemed like a big waste of time.
Yeah, but I think that fans, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I think that GMs, to do their job, there's very few that are going to just view everything. And it's probably reckless to do that in order to keep things, normal as far as your day-to-day job. But I think it is important to touch base with fans, with the media, and that we heard that the fans have been upset with that because they haven't heard anything from Tom Fitzgerald, and he did speak to them. So again, you take what you want out of it. I thought it was pretty run-of-the-mill GM talk. He talked about some situations. He took ownership of the team not being where it's at, and I think that was a good way to kind of start the whole thing. And but I don't know, boys. Like I didn't take a ton from it. I think they really do believe in this core. It was good to hear him kind of state that again. I don't think he's going to say an appointed question, no, I don't believe in this core, we're going to try to trade people. Like, no one's going to say that in that job position. So, but it was good. It was good, I think, for people to hear from Tom Fitzgerald and where this team is kind of at and what they're looking at here in the coming weeks.
Arthur, anything?
I mean, just from my experience being in those rooms, or as a reporter, you do want that sit down, even in a big group setting like that. But there's no lie detectors out there. It's not Fitzy's not strapped to a polygraph, and you're not going to have your aha. I don't think he was truthful there. Like,
yeah,
GMs are going to say the most vague things that they can say. Taking responsibility, I think, is par for the course. And Fitzy is a guy who's been around as a GM, as a front office guy for a long time, so he knows the drill. And I think whether you're a media person or a fan, when you're clamoring for that and you say, I demand accountability, you're not going to feel satisfied.
No.
I think there's maybe one guy in the league, and that's Jim Rutherford, who's
I was just going to say, yeah.
That's funny. I was going to say the same name.
Some red meat in one of those sessions. So, I've been in situations covering teams. I'm not going to name names over the years, but where you're texting with the GM and you're getting what you probably is really going on, and then they go out and do a press conference and they say the exact opposite. So, I understand where some of the media for the Devils is coming from. I certainly understand where the fans are coming from, but a press conference is not going to win you over. It's about what Tom does and behind the scenes, what he's doing to change the roster. And we know he hasn't done enough to change the roster, and he took ownership of that. And certainly the understanding that they've been trying hard for weeks to make moves, and they are probably hamstrung by the no move clauses that he gave out. And we've gone over that to death, really, about why you do that, bringing in free agents like Palat and Dougie. And now you get bit by it, and it happened maybe a little sooner than you would have thought. But press conference is not going to change hearts and minds. You gotta make a move. You got to do something drastic, and they did that by sitting Dougie out. Came back and had a good game. I still think he's going to get moved sooner rather than later. And if they pull off that deal, then boom, you've got the I demand answer. If you're a fan or a media person, there's your answer. They've made a move, and we'll see if it makes a difference. But the most important thing for the Devils is to follow up on a good game and have a good one tonight against Seattle, and then you go from there. The talk is cheap, I guess. Seems strange coming from a guy who talks for a living and listens to people talk for a living, but that's kind of how it is.
Jonny, I just want to throw one more thing out there. The one thing as Arthur was talking, I'm thinking like the one message that I really liked was in reference to the 22-23 season, and he said how great that was. And really, I think that was the eye opener season where you knew that this was a team that had something kind of special going with their high end talent, their core guys. And they were a team, and he touched on it. Tom Fitzgerald touched on it. They were a rush team, and they were dangerous. And I thought he brought up a great point. And when you establish yourself kind of doing one thing like that, everyone else is going to adapt and adjust to how they're going to play against you as well. And they're going to try to take some of those things away. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically where the team is at now, like they're still a team that can strike and have that quick strike offense, but now they're still trying to find ways when you don't get those opportunities to score. And I think that was bang on what we've seen for this team is finding ways to win. In the National Hockey League, it's hard, and there's not many teams in the league that can figure that out, where it could look 10 different ways in 10 different games, but you win those 10 games. And I think that's what they're battling for right now. So I liked the way he kind of broke that down. But yeah, the rest of the stuff was just kind of touch a base with everybody, and I thought a lot of it was expected.
Well, with that too, and we touched on the Devils core, like I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago about this having to be like, an all-in year for the Devils when their core is really young still. Jack's only 24. I think Nico's only like 26 or 27. A lot of their guys are under 30, in the core that's built up for this team. So, when you believe in this core, like the window is still, it might feel like it's shutting because it's been a while with Fitz, but it's still just like opening, right? Like you thought maybe it would open faster after the series win against the Rangers in 2023 to the year you're referencing, Rupper, when they were such a high-paced, high-octane offense. But like that's why, to me, it doesn't feel like a moment of panic for the Devils with this core.
I mean, I get what you're saying. They haven't, and they certainly haven't won enough. Even like you compare them unfavorably, but you compare them to an Edmonton, where it's like your core is rock solid, and you try to put the right pieces around them to succeed. They've struggled at that for a lot of years. They kind of got it right the last couple of years. They got so close, and then you have to keep fiddling with it. I think the problem for Fitz and the Devils is that you can't fiddle because of the no move clauses. You could say to yourself, all right, we went out and got Andre Palat to be this kind of like veteran leader, guy who's won. He's not keeping up his end of the bargain on the ice. So let's change it up. But you can't change it up because you gave him a no move clause and he doesn't want to go anywhere, or teams aren't really clamoring to have him. So when you've got coming out of the pandemic era, flat cap situation for a lot of years, that sets you back too. So yeah, you want to be, I agree. Fitz should have faith in this core. I was questioning it whether you move on from Jack or Luke or both of them if you really feel like you're stuck. But the problem is they're stuck with the surrounding cast, and that's the thing I think here that's really been frustrating and caused this giving the impression that they're just sitting on their hands waiting for it to turn around. It's obviously not the case. You just can't make the moves, and I get the frustration with the fan base that they want to see some things change, but you have to be able to do drastic stuff, and I feel like they did that with Dougie over the weekend, and we'll see where it goes in the next couple of weeks here. And maybe, there's definitely rumors that they're trying to move Palat too, and we'll see where that goes. But core is good. It's just you got to get a new supporting cast, and sometimes you have to change that supporting cast pretty frequently, as the Oilers have done, and you got to keep it fresh and be able to have some cap flexibility. And we just haven't seen it with the Devils because this is really the first time they've felt that desperation, I think.
I'd like to propose a question to the both of you if I can too. I was just having somewhat of an online debate. I saw Vince Mercogliano, who covers the Rangers for the Athletic, refer to this. He said, "Do we consider Alexis Lafreniere a veteran at this point? It's his 6th season. ... And I was thinking, like, what really qualifies an NHL veteran? Like, I was thinking either a 28-year-old or someone who 28 plus or someone who's played 500 plus pro games. Like, this got me thinking about Jack Hughes. Is Jack Hughes considered a veteran in the NHL by anyone? I don't see it that way. And Jack's played, almost 400 games now in the NHL. Like, do you see him, a 24-year-old who's played close to 400 games, as a veteran? It's his 7th season. I don't see it that way, though.
I mean, I always thought year 3 of a player,
Really?
you're a vet. Now, does that mean that you are
Zach Benson?
Yeah, like, are you a finished product? No, but I think I always thought about it more as, you get a couple runs around the league, you get to understand what the league is about. You make changes. You start maturing, and you should be able to mature after 164 games. Like, you should be able to do that. I think there's a couple hundred games is plenty, and that's kind of how I viewed it. I mean, you bring up a great point, though. A veteran is generally used for players that are, I guess, older on roster, that have been around for a long time. But I've always considered a veteran to be like year 3. There's certain levels to that, but that's long enough where you got to start parking some excuses, I think, once you get to that, I guess, veteran status.
Arthur?
Yeah, I'd go year 5 maybe, just because there's, especially when you're factoring in number 1 overall pick who's starting at age 18. But, what does veteran mean? It comes with some connotations when you say that. It means leadership. It means accountability. It means maturity. And you don't always get that from a guy in year 5 or year 6 who's 24 years old. But I think in this case, Jack he leads as a player, and he leads as kind of the face of the franchise. But he's got young veterans around him. I would say Bratt and Nico are veterans because of the way they carry themselves, the way that they, obviously Nico wearing the C, and Bratt's been there a long time too. So you have some guys in your age range that you can point to and say, okay, I don't necessarily need to be everything that you define as a veteran. If you're Jack, I think with Laugh, he's needed even less. And I think it's hurt him, in a big way, because, he's some of the stories you've heard and some of the things that I had reported years ago when Gerard Gallant was making him a healthy scratch, Peter Laviolette had some problems. Like, he's kind of a young veteran. He's a young 24-year-old, which is strange to say because we all think 24 is young, even you, John.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But it's different when you're a number 1 overall pick and you're in that spotlight. And certainly now that they've changed a lot of their characters around them, and obviously he's not wearing a letter, he's not relied on for that stuff, but you still got to have an impact, and you still got to come to work every day and be a guy who's gonna have affect the outcome of a practice or a game. And we've talked about it a lot, and you don't see that from Laugh. I mean, Jack has kind of been there and in and out of that a lot of times, and I think he gets a little bit more of a pass because of his incredible skill and the way that he plays. But but I think for Laugh, the spotlight's on him now, and they're you're finding cracks in what you'd consider to be a veteran. So
I guess for me,
harsh,
yeah, like
true.
It's true. Like I think you guys make really good points. I mean, I think it's fair to look at these things differently. Like I guess the way I took it, I never played pro, so I don't know what like the difference between a guy who played 500 games versus a guy who played 164 games really looks like at the pro level. But when I think veteran, I think when that guy speaks, no matter what, and you should listen to your teammates always, but when that guy speaks, I am listening. And sometimes there are guys who, yeah, this guy just says shit all the time, but doesn't actually do it. You have a few of those. And you tune those guys out sometimes, but the veteran to me is the one who has done everything in the league and like knows from experience. You know what I mean? That's why I guess I looked at it differently. Like I don't know if like Alexi Lafreniere is commanding that room right now. Like Jack's probably a different story because Jack's their best player, and everyone's going to listen to the best player for the most part. Sometimes when that guy speaks up, but if you're a guy who's played 6 seasons in the NHL and isn't a guy who necessarily commands the room, do you call that guy a veteran? I guess that's where
you're having it. You're having it as like, I mean, there's some lousy, and I'm not talking about these guys, lousy veterans. And there's been lousy veterans I've played with that have been in the league a long time, just worry about themselves and just not really, for a bunch of different reasons, aren't maybe the greatest, I guess, teammates. I think that I look at it more, and I don't think any of us are right or wrong. Like this is all kind of part of how you view it.
It's a fun debate.
No, it is, and I've always taken it as that's where you are held accountable. And so if like picture it this way, if you've been in the league for 5 years and a GM wants to have a sit down with you and evaluate your exit meeting at the end of the year or speak to your agent, like this player's been let's go off what I said, 3 years. He's been in the league for 3 years. He's a veteran who knows how to and is experienced enough and been around some of these older guys that you know better, or this is where you're supposed to be, and this is how you're supposed to grow. So I've always thought of it that way, as just as far as accountability, like, hey, you're a vet now, you've been around, and you should be making some adjustments to yourself personally.
Yeah, well said. Let's get into our voicemails. We have a ton of them. We're going to go Rangers, Islanders, Devils in order 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I think we have a 4th Islander voicemail and 3 more Ranger voicemails. So we don't want to go team by team by team. We want to mix in all the conversations. And with that, let's get to our first voicemail, a Ranger voicemail from Kaylee.
Hey guys, Kaylee from Long Island. Big Rangers fan. It's pretty doom and gloom being a Rangers fan these days. Props to Johnny, who has to cover this awful team every day. I don't know how you do it, but as a sports fan, I always look for the direction of my team. Whether they're good, whether they're bad, I want to see a direction. And this team does have a direction. They brought in JT Miller, gave him the C, no bullshit. They want the team to implement the kind of hockey that JT Miller plays. But I think a lot of us fans could have told you that wasn't going to happen from the minute they brought him in. With this core that is made up of relatively the same players from 2 years ago, we knew that JT Miller wasn't going to come in and all of a sudden change all these players to play a totally different style of hockey than they have. I mean, that's why it's so frustrating for us fans, because we could have seen this coming from a mile away, and there almost feels like no way to get out, because now this team is so stuck in the hole they've dug themselves that it's so hard rooting for this team, because there seems to almost be no bright side. As someone who always looks for a positive, I mean, you could look to Gabe Perreault, but other than that, it's really hard. It's really hard being a fan of this team. Anyways, have a good day, guys.
Wow. Very heartfelt from Kaylee. Listen, I recommend the I respect the vulnerability there as a fan. And, as someone who always tries to find the positive, it's hard to find the positives right now, just like Kaylee was saying. With JT Miller and bringing him in, I actually felt like it was a good thing at the time, especially because they were moving on from Filipino. They gave up a pick, and I don't think Victor Mancini is going to be like an every night NHLer right now, at least, or in the near future. And the Rangers are looking at this like win now window at the time. Like I thought the trade for what it was a pretty good trade. The Rangers got back a guy that is considered a leader, a guy that, you can build a culture around when things are good, and a guy that, will add a little FU to the game, which the Rangers needed at the time. They got rid of Trouba, who was the only guy really that had a little FU in his game. That like they traded him away. So maybe the Trouba for Miller is kind of a, maybe those two like cancel each other out in some sense. But as far as the direction of the team, yeah, it does feel like they're stuck. And I think that's what a lot of Ranger fans are dealing with. I've talked to some players around the league who I would never, ever, ever name, and they feel the same way. Like, what are the Rangers doing? What is their like? I think that's just kind of where we're at with the Rangers, and everyone knows it. It's no secret. So I don't know if you guys feel any differently about that, but I kind of agree with almost everything that Kaylee said. Aside from the feelings of last year, I did feel like it wouldn't be this bad.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think in an ideal world, you bring in a JT Miller to allow whether it's Fox or Mika or Panarin to be themselves. Like you've like we were just talking about with Jack Hughes, you've got guys now, or a guy in JT Miller who can absorb all of that, who can be the prickly guy, be the guy who's going to bring the coach's message to the room, maybe in a harsh way, maybe speak in a way that the room needed to be spoken to. Maybe you've got too many good guys, like Rupper has said. Maybe you need more assholes. JT Miller is, not to be, this is a compliment. He's kind of a renowned asshole. He is a renowned asshole.
Yeah.
So you've put that guy in the center of your room. Great. In an ideal world, he's a high-end guy skill-wise. He'll add to your skill. He'll add to the, and he'll give you that element of rubbing people the wrong way, maybe even his own people. And maybe Chris Drury felt that they needed that. Totally fair. But when it doesn't work, and it's not worked, I mean, he played pretty well at the end of last season when he came in. He just, there was so much turmoil. But coming into this year, he was hurt in training camp, tried to play through it, hurt again, clearly still playing through something. And I think, kind of, the post game the other night where he just had no answers, and he's been really honest and about himself and about the team all the way through this season. But you can't just be, there can't just be one guy to absorb all of the frustration. And I think that's kind of maybe getting at a little bit what Mika said, that they're all looking around to somebody else. Maybe they're just looking at JT Miller to say, okay, he's our captain. He's our spokesman. He's the one who tells it like it is. He can absorb all the blows. And it's like when you're injured and playing through something and not playing anywhere near your capability, he's an emotional guy. I think it's frustrating him. It's certainly frustrating everybody else in the room. It's frustrating the fan base. So, and Rupper, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but when you bring in one guy to be the chief asshole and he's not able to really do it because of injury or whatever, not playing up to his potential, everyone else can't just sit back and say like, well, we tried the asshole way and it didn't work. Now we can just go back to kind of, saying whatever we want to say or not addressing it or whatever. Like it's gotta infect the room, right, Rupper? The message has to spread that we got to be tough on ourselves and tough on our opponents. And no message has gone out for all those different reasons and probably a lot more. And so it feels like they're just spinning their wheels, and they brought in a guy who was supposed to deliver this message and be tough and the no BS thing, and it just hasn't worked. And that's a lot to shoulder for a guy like JT Miller, and I'm sure he's struggling with it for sure.
I just think it's tough, even though and conversations were probably had before he joined the Rangers, with the Rangers, like before he comes in day one, he knows what is expected of him, but it's still tough to, even if you've got one of your best buds on the team, it's tough to go into an NHL team and you could be a vocal guy somewhere else. You still have to learn the ins and outs of the room. You can't just come in. I mean, you come in guns blazing. It's, I don't know. Even if it's a young guy, he might be rolling his eyes internally, and you're going to lose people. So you've got to navigate that. And I just think when you go back to the trade, and John, you positioned it nice, like it was worth, I don't want to say taking the chance on it. It was worth shaking up the team in this way, because this Rangers team, and I like a lot of the players over the last few years, but it has been a very, very vanilla team, personality wise. As far as I don't mean personality wise, good guys, but they just weren't. They're very vanilla.
You said
on the edge.
alphas. You've said alphas.
Yeah,
I feel like in
I've
years
used the
past.
word
Yeah.
alpha before, and JT's an alpha, and I was just messing with you, Arthur, because you're bang on. JT Miller's known to be an asshole. I think he owns that. He loves that. I mean, that's what he brings. And I don't know what exactly his injury status is. I mean, he doesn't look like himself. I mean, you got a player that is one of the bigger alphas in the league, that was not far removed from 99-point season. Like, it was a good move. It was the right move. It was maybe a little desperate move, because you had so many things that were not right. You tried to make this big one and see if it can change the course. It hasn't yet. I still think I'd like to see him fully healthy. I'd like to see some more guys kind of getting a little more flavor. You need to have more guys than just one, Arthur said. But I personally, it hasn't worked out, I think, the way that everybody thought, but I still think it was a great move. And it's one that, we'll see where it goes. But right now it hasn't moved the needle all that much.
I just want to add one last thing about the post game. Like when he says, "I don't know," I'm sorry, I don't know. Like, that's the post game quote that kind of went all over the place. Not saying something says something, right? Like I'm fine with the way he responded like that. Like Arthur said, he said the right things all year, but losing 4 games in a row and he didn't have his best game, and no one seems to have the answer. He genuinely doesn't know what to say. He doesn't have the answer. The team's not good enough. And he's not going to say in front of the media, "We're not good enough." He's not going to say that. Then that's when you lose the room. That's when players are like, "Oh, fuck our captain. He doesn't have our backs."
Yeah.
Right? So he could have sat there and ripped on other guys, but he knows he himself has not been good enough either. So when he says, "I'm sorry, I don't know," it's because no one in the room has the answer. That's why.
It's funny, though, because let's go back to captains, leaders, the veteran guys with letters, whoever it is, every team's differently. But you guys, like the captains, are seeing the media every single day. He has to speak every day, and he has to say something. And when your game isn't to the level, and I think he holds himself in very high regard as far as what he can bring to the table. And he knows he hasn't been the JT Miller, I think, that they thought they were going to get. And again, maybe it's because he's banged up. Maybe it's a bunch of different things. But it's really hard to give candid answers because, to your point, Johnny, everyone else, you got to be careful what you say, because everyone else can be like, "Hang on a second, you're going to say that?" I'm pretty sure you know what I mean? Like, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So him saying nothing is probably the right move there. I mean, geez, I always think back to when Anthony Stolarz kind of at the beginning of this year called out the Toronto Maple Leafs, and his game wasn't on point, and he's stunk ever since. He's been banged up, but like, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't work that way. So I think people are going to perceive it as, "What do you mean you don't know? You're the captain. Aren't you supposed to be driving and directing the ship?" And but it's a lot easier said than done. You got to be careful, because his game isn't to the level that it needs to be just calling the shots on other players.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's just one Ranger voicemail. we've got plenty to get to. So I hope everyone has a lot of time today. Let's go to David, who has an Islanders voicemail.
Hey guys, big fan of the show. Always wanted to start one of these myself, actually. Johnny, we've met before at the Camp Cup and the Equinung Cup. You got to tell these guys about the sporting environment of summer camp roller hockey. Rupper, big fan. You're the best. And Arthur, love the coverage you get for all 3 New York teams, but especially the Islanders. My question for you guys is, how do the Islanders accommodate their sort of window now with Barzell in his prime, Sorokin, Horvat, Pelech and Pulak still in their prime, and, adding some pieces for while they're competitive, and yet not jeopardizing Schaefer and Richie, who are much younger and still years away from their prime? Do they go after a Jordan Kyrou who fits the now window? Do they try to wait and continue to draft younger pieces? Let me know what you guys think.
Arthur?
I mean, I think we
talked
talked
about this a little bit yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday, like Rupper, like you got to go for it, and I think you got to go for it in a sensible way. And yeah, David mentioned Jordan Kyrou. That's who I mentioned. Like, you got a cost control guy. I know he's expensive, but guy who's produced. There's still a team that could use wingers that can produce. So yeah, I think Matthew Darsh has kind of said we're still in this evaluation mode, and you still can be. I understand that, like, kind of that Olympic break coming up in whatever it is, 3 weeks now. That's going to be some sort of deadline, and I feel like if I could pick one guy that's going to get moved before that, it's probably Dougie Hamilton. I can't really speak to anybody else, but that's not a guy who the Islanders are really going to be chasing. So, yes, you have to balance it all out, and I think the incredible surprise of what Schaefer's done this year maybe accelerates it. And again, like Rupper said, you got him on an entry-level deal. I think that for some teams would be a consideration. The Islanders aren't really near the cap. I don't think their plan is to be near the cap as the cap goes up exponentially. Sorokin's cost controlled, Horvat's cost controlled, Barzey's cost controlled. They're not really in a situation where they're like, we got to figure this out because we've got so much money out right now. I think everybody that they've got at their core, other than a Lee or a Pageau, who you don't even know if they're going to be around for the long haul, everybody's locked up. So I feel like you can be smart. You can kind of have a targeted, are we going to find guys that fit what we do, that we know we can control, that are like in their 20, the unicorn that every team, you see the rumor guys come out, well, if they can find a guy that's in their 20s and cost control, the forward, whatever, like, yeah, that's what everybody wants. But the Islanders maybe are in a unique position where they have the assets, you can make a trade like that. And even if it's a guy that's maybe expiring or close to expiring, you've got some things that'll appeal to some people. You've got one of the best maybe the best young defenseman in the game. You've got some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've got one of the top goalies. So, maybe there's a market for them where you can have some appeal to maybe some guys who've got some trade protection, and the Islanders are usually one of those teams that nobody wants to go to if they got a choice. So we'll see if that kind of stuff changes, but I wouldn't say for sure that they're going to just blow it all up and go for broke right now, but maybe in a targeted way they can.
I like the one Arthur you've talked about numerous times, the Kyrou, because that is something that you talk about cost certainty, the cap going up. He's under contract for a long time. This is a player that's gotten 35 or so in that range goals like twice. He's 27 years old. I think Jordan Kyrou is a 40 goal guy in this league. He gets in the right situation. So, that would be something I think that if you're the Islanders, you're looking at and you're figuring maybe like that, because you mentioned it last episode. I don't see them just going and they're not going to go get rentals, I don't believe, for this year. Maybe like a little tweaking one of a depth piece, but nothing that's really going to cost a ton. I think you save that for a player that you got under contract and has a real high ceiling like a Jordan Kyrou.
Mm-hmm. I agree with both of you guys. I just don't think for the base of the question, it's don't force anything, right? Like, don't feel like you have to do it. Like, you can stay patient. And obviously, like we said yesterday, you want to reward what this team has done, but do not like take some massive risk, I think, this year, right? Like, I don't know. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out, I guess, for the Islanders. But let's get into our next one. This is a Devil's voicemail from Manny.
Hey guys, Kaylee from Long Island. Big Rain.
That's a fuck up. All right, let's go to. I mean, you can even leave this in the pod. I won't even edit this out. Let's go to Penelope from Jersey.
All right, Penelope from Jersey. Thanks, Vic.
Hey, this is Penelope from Jersey. So we've all seen the news about Dougie. I'm interested to hear what you guys think and what you think about Fitzy's statement. I think a lot of people who don't follow the Devils think that this is happening just because of how Dougie is playing, and they might say that Dougie isn't the source of all of our problems. But the real thing is his $9 million salary and our cap space, and trading him would open up some room for us to maybe get some help. So let me know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, listen,
Harper, have at it.
I mean,
Okay,
you
go ahead, Johnny. Take it, buddy.
I was going to say this feels like getting rid of Jacob Trouba's contract last year for the Rangers. Like, they just wanted to open up some money. They didn't really, they brought back Urho Vakanainen and a pick. But for the Devils, like, they're even in a better position because the right-handed side of their blue line is pretty loaded right now, right? You got Nemetz, Kovacevic, you got Seamus Casey, who still can't even crack the lineup. I think I'm even missing one. Who am I missing? Brett Pesce. Like their right side is pretty strong. So to move on from Dougie and to open up that $9 million, that could help the Devils in the long run. They don't need to get an NHL player in return unless they're getting a forward, because they could always add a forward. But, this seems just very similar to let's move on from that money and open up some space versus like we need to trade Dougie for, what would be considered a hockey trade.
Yeah, I mean, because you talk about it, they almost have an embarrassment of riches on the right side. So that's where you want to make moves. Like that's an area where you think that you can. The other part with it too is not to forget. I mean, you got different scale that we talked about with Matthew Schaefer on his entry level. Well, you got Simone Nemetz on his. So, like, if you can move in a perfect world, you move out 9 on Dougie, but you got under $1 million for Nemetz. Now you've got some flexibility, and you don't really have to do anything on your back end. So you can use that money wherever you want in your lineup. So, I think there's going to be again that this is. I'll give you my opinion on it, and I don't believe that if this was the case for any of these teams, that you're not going to have a coach, you're not going to have a GM that comes out and tells you these things, because they shouldn't. It's bad business for them. But of course, Dougie, there is a little bit of pressure in this. You're kind of the odd man out. Now, the way he played in Minnesota was fantastic. So you got to kind of juggle that relationship. Like, all right, like, how about if we can't move him? We just can't have him that we're just going to bury this guy and make him think he has no value on our team. You play like that, and you'll be in our lineup. And I think you say that, but at the same time, this is a business where that $9 million is holding things up, and it's a $9 million that is expendable, because you have depth and you've had the emergence of Nemetz this year, and you've got that's probably your deepest position. So we'll see where it goes. I kind of think with you there, Arthur. I think he does get moved here. I thought that statement from his agent saying that they're open to maybe expanding on the 10 teams, I thought that was huge. So we'll see where it goes. But I don't think you're ever going to get a full. I mean, you didn't get that full stuff on the Jacob Trouba situation necessarily, maybe a little bit more, but you got to be careful with that stuff. It's a very slippery slope how you manage those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Arthur, any thought?
I'll just jump in. I'll just quickly put in to Penelope's question, like if the Devils were, as they started the season, going along at a .650 winning percentage, definitely headed to a playoff spot, thinking about being targeted buyers, like, you're not moving Dougie Hamilton. Like, he's an integral part of what you're doing as a successful team right now. And the debate is Johnny Kovacevic playing or is Simone Nemetz playing on the third pair? That's when things are going great. So I don't think this is a situation where Dougie has played his way out of this roster. The team has played like shit and had all the injuries and whatever else has been going on. And he's the fall guy because of the contract, because it's expiring, because of the money. I think I threw it up. There was a Puckpedia article that kind of outlined he's got a $7.4 million signing bonus coming on July 1, and then I think it's 6.25 or 6.5 total salary for the next 2 years. So there's a scenario where they can move him somewhere that might not be his permanent home, and then they agree to a mutual termination somewhere over the summer, and he starts fresh with a new contract. So hopefully that opens up some more options too, where it's teams that are maybe not playoff teams but are taking on the salary, they get a pick or whatever, and you've at least, you're not bringing anybody back, you've at least gotten them off your roster so you can have some flexibility. Yeah, I don't think this is an indictment of where Dougie Hamilton's game is right now. It's an indictment of where the Devils are right now and the desperation that's caused.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Any other thought on that?
Nope.
Okay,
Let's
do
keep going.
Kyle Rangers voicemail.
Hey guys, lifelong Ranger fan here. Just increasingly frustrated with how little it looks like the Rangers actually care out there. The team, really the sport for that matter, is a shell of its former self. As a Ranger fan, talking about Rupper here, one of the things that really, stands out to me when I look back at the black and blue shirts era is playing a game against Florida. I want to say it was in December and end of game. They have, I believe it was Thomas Kopecky sucker punched Delzato. Rupp grabbed him and beat the brakes off of him. I think if we saw that today with this Ranger team, they'd all skate towards the bench, not wanting to, even get halfway involved. So I guess my question is, how do we get back to a time and to a team where they actually care about each other and care about winning and really, if they get down big, they just start two-handing guys, going after guys, and taking their pound of flesh. How do we get back to that? Thanks.
All you, Rupper. What a video. Good job, Vic.
Oh, Vic.
Great call,
Yeah,
too.
What
good
a
job,
pull.
Vic, grabbing that. So it's kind of funny. A little backstory on that is that was the game before the 2012 Winter Classic. So I'm leaving that game, and I'm like, I remember distinctly. This is in Florida, and I'm walking down the tunnel, and I remember saying to myself, "Fuck, I'm gonna get suspended from the Winter Classic." I'm like, "Ugh." I remember thinking that. I was just like, I'm done. But it was like, but I was like, you have to react when stuff like that happens. Michael Delzato gets sucker punched. I mean, they were battling, and DZ was exchanging some cross checks. But I guess the snapshot of it is inside the room. It's like we win the game. We're inside the room, and it's like I remember DZ comes up, hits me on the pads. Thanks, Ruppy, and Torts comes in and just kind of peeks his head in the room, kind of looks at me like a proud father, and just nodded his head. And the boys knew that we had each other's back, and that's just one situation in that. But it's like it does a lot for you. And so I don't know how you get back there. I think you get back there by I've said this numerous times, like that was my job, my role. So I don't really see any other way of looking at it. But like, let's say on that ice, on that team at the time, let's say Ruslan Fedotenko jumped in there. That moves the needle probably more than Mike Rupp doing it, right? Some guy that doesn't necessarily do that, but shows that he's got that. Prusty was on the ice there. He be of the same thing as me. Like you would expect that. But I guess that's my point is when you get a roster full of some kind of junkyard dogs in their own right and just compete, like what happens if, I don't know, like let's name anybody on that roster that's maybe out of their element. Like what we don't want Mika dropping the gloves.
No, that'll never happen.
But if Mika did drop the gloves,
do it. Laugh could
right.
change,
No, but
change a lot of the narrative.
I guess
around
that, and maybe Mika's a bad example. But my point is, if somebody that you wouldn't expect it does it, that's how you get shit moving. You know what I mean? And we had that on that team. It didn't matter. Brad Richards would get in there for you. He didn't wait for someone else to kind of jump in. So, I don't know. That's kind of where it's at. It's funny watching that clip, but I mean, that was a special team because we had each other's back, and we weren't vanilla. We weren't vanilla. It was a unique group, and it was led by guys like Dan Girardi, Ryan Callahan. Brandon Dubinsky was that piss and vinegar. Like he pissed us off probably more than the opponent inside that room. You know what I mean? So, I think it matters that you have some versatility in your personalities inside your locker room.
Yeah. But we've also seen other teams have it, and those guys, like we've talked about the Islanders, right? Like they, just because they're not fighting doesn't mean they don't have it,
Yeah.
Like you don't have
Devils
to
have
throw
done it too.
punches to have it. Yeah, I agree.
And it's not the fighting. We can move on from it, but it's not even the fighting. It's showing up. It's just showing up in that moment, showing that you are not going to accept it. And it might even be getting in there and just verbally saying something. But if if you don't do any of it, it's a killer. It's a killer.
Yeah.
You're never going to win. If your team does that consistently, you're never going to win.
All right, let's go to our next one. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Quickly, kudos to that linesman for letting go Noshek so you could beat the shit out of him, Rupper. Because that's a thing that you see a lot now is that the linesman will step in if they see a situation that's going to escalate, as opposed to just saying all right, this guy deserves it. Fuck it.
So it was kind of sneaky on it because I remember. So if I just go in there, because Presti went in there and jumped on him. And if I went in there and beelined it in there, that's where you're going to get someone grabbing you. If you look, I remember distinctively like just getting lost a little bit. And I kind of circled the pile because I was going to wait till it kind of dissipated a little bit. And so I went around the net. I moved around Hanky, went around the net the long way, and was just kind of waiting in the background until the linesman was skating him to the penalty box, and then I was just going to jump him. So, yeah, that was but the linesman did let him go in that moment, so I appreciated that. I remember actually getting the phone call. I remember getting the phone call from the league on it, and it was a great phone call because they were reviewing it, see if I was going to get suspended, and they were like, "We understand why you did it. Well, you can't do that though. We don't want that to happen again." It was basically a warning, but we understand why you did it. And I thought that was cool because you don't also want players getting sucker punched. So that was kind of that maybe new age policing of things that maybe have died off maybe since, but it was still prevalent there in whatever that was, 2011.
And then you get good karma in Tuck 2 in Philadelphia, huh? Right after. Good karma. Good karma. Next one from Phil. This is an Islanders voicemail.
Hey, guys. This is a 69-year-old Islander fan who kind of fell in love with the team back in 72 when I was in high school. But I'm just totally amazed at how freaking good the Islanders look this year. And I got a question for you, and it's based on the 6 top teams in the West. Just got up this morning after a great win against Minnesota and looking at their record against Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Vegas, and Edmonton. And according to my math, they are 6-1 against those teams. Here's my question. Are these teams, because they're not that familiar with the East, are they taking the Islanders lightly? Or are the Islanders just sneaking up on these guys and they're catching them off guard? Or 3, are the Islanders just that damn good that they have done so well against these high-flying teams in the West? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Love the podcast. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Phil. I say it's nice 3. Message. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'd go 3 and a little bit of. I mean, I'm trying to remember what the order was. It's nobody's taking them for granted. I don't think. I think maybe you get a situation like when Colorado was in there. It's a long road trip, and it's another stop, and sometimes guys have that long stay. Teams from the West have that long stay in the tri-state area, and if you're the team that gets them on the back-to-back, or if you're the team that gets them off a day, or even better, 2 days off, where they've had time to have some fun in New York City, that's where you want it. But those are we could go back and look, I guess, and see. But I feel like last night Islanders kind of maybe played down a little bit to Winnipeg's level and weren't very good in that game. There's just some teams out there that ramp it up for the good teams, and I don't think they're taking anybody by surprise. Maybe the first time they did it, I forget which one that would have been. Maybe the Dallas game in Dallas. That was maybe the first one, but nothing since. They're a good team that plays well against other good teams. That's a sign of a good team.
I'll be quick on this one. I think it's they can win different ways. So I don't think they surprise anybody, but what do you want to do? Like, how do you want this game to go? They can adapt and they could be successful. And they've got guys, they got some chameleons on that roster. So I think that's one of the strongest attributes this team has, because there's a lot of things you could look at on that team and say, well, they're not as good as that team with this, and they're not as good as that team with that. But they do kind of have different ways to win that a lot of teams struggle with. So I think that's the biggest thing.
And I watched a lot of those games. Like, those weren't games where the Islanders won and didn't deserve to. Like, they deserved those wins. Maybe the game that stands out the most is the Vegas game. I think that was like a late comeback. They get a couple power plays late and tie it. I think Barzal has the tying goal and Schaefer wins it in OT, if I remember correctly, on that great road trip. But watching that Dallas game, watching the Vegas one, which was the game they lost? Did they lose in Colorado?
Yeah, they did, but that was one they played really. It was a 1-goal game till late in the third. Yeah,
they played well. Like, that's my point. Like, these weren't games that Sorokin stole. These are games where the Islanders are toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. And that's probably why Phil and everyone else is so encouraged, because none of this is a fluke. It's been consistent all year. So that's all I got for that. I mean, let's get into the next one. This is going to be from Manny, and this is a Devils voice.
Hey guys, this is Manny from Queens. I'm a Devils fan, and I'm wondering, what's your take on Sheldon Keefe and his job security? I feel like the general consensus amongst hockey people is that he's not primarily to blame for the Devils' struggles, and he shouldn't take the fall for it. And I'm not saying he's the biggest problem there, but I'm also not convinced he's a solution. In a year and a half, he's had the Devils playing at a sub-90-point pace. The underlying numbers have never looked great. Yeah, there have been a lot of injuries, but also, even in stretches where they've been mostly healthy, they haven't played consistently well. People forget that last season there were 2 months before Jack Hughes got injured in March where they were pretty healthy and not playing well at all. I think I saw a stat where no team scored fewer 5-on-5 goals in 2025 than the Devils. Is there a single player who has gotten better under Keefe? I get that firing the coach is the easy thing to do, but it feels like something's got to change there, and I don't feel like Keefe has done enough to warrant sticking around. Thanks, guys.
Fair points from Manny. I will say today in the Tom Fitzgerald press conference, he said that he and Sheldon Keefe are in lockstep. That was the quote, meaning to me that if Tom Fitzgerald's going, that means Sheldon Keefe is also probably going. So I would assume they're going to reassess that at the end of the regular season, like it's been reported the past few days that that's what they're doing with Tom Fitzgerald. So I don't think Sheldon Keefe's job is in jeopardy during this regular season. I don't know about you guys. Just keeping it real on that one.
I would second that. I mean, anything can. It's not. I wouldn't expect it to be, but I mean, anything can happen. I mean, you
they lose 10 in a row,
15, 20 games in a row, like you're going to get fired. So anything can certainly happen. I'll say this: I think that it depends. He hasn't had these injuries over the last couple of seasons. We don't know what this team is. We don't. And that's not an excuse, because there's times where they are healthy, like now pretty darn healthy, and trying to navigate through this. I think you're talking about a guy, when Sheldon Keefe was with the Marlies and he was coming up, renowned as one of the bright minds of up-and-coming coaches. And he got to Toronto there, and you can say whatever you want to say, but those years that he was coaching in Toronto were some of the best Toronto Maple Leaf years that they've had in a long time. So you can't deny that. Now he comes to New Jersey, and so I kind of would agree with the caller in that regards. So like I'm not willing to say like, yes, he is absolutely the guy that's going to deliver them to the promised land, but I would certainly say he doesn't show me he's not. And so I still think you're trying to see this thing through. So Johnny, I agree with you. I think that Fitzy and him are both going to be safe.
Mine wasn't even an opinion. That was just fact on what was said today.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes. Fitzy said that in the presser, more or less. And I'll say this, and I've said it 100 times. Maybe that's what the players need to hear, is that everybody, the management is going to be in place. The coach is going to be in place. So we got to figure this out inside the room.
Arthur?
Yeah. I mean, if they miss the playoffs and Fitz gets let go in the offseason, I don't even think Keefe is an automatic to be let go. I think whatever GM comes in, Keefe's probably under contract for a few more years. I think you get a year under any new GM to evaluate with Keefe, because it's 2 years for a coach to decide to make that declaration that he's not helping our young guys get better, or he's not playing a style that we need to be playing. I mean, I know Dean Evison just got let go after a year plus in Columbus, essentially. And that's too soon to me. Like, given coaches 2 years, it seems like you can develop a reputation for being a little too quick with the trigger if you're going 2 years or less than 2 years and out. Because you're just going to keep searching for the right mix. So I don't know. I think certainly if Fitz stays, I don't think Keefe is going to go. And I think even if Fitz goes in the summer, that I think Keefe will get to start a third season just to see if they can be injury free, whatever, new set of eyes. I'm sure I can be wrong about this, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into our next one. This is a voicemail for the Rangers from Mr. Mike.
Johnny, Rupper, Mr. Staple. This is Mr. Mike, formerly a Syosset. calling from East Windsor Whalers country again after another demoralizing Blue Shirts loss. It's a good thing that this is happening now compared to after the roster freeze, compared to after the trade deadline. Make the selling moves that you need to do now. Sucks that it took Igor and Fox going down, and I hate to see injuries derail a season, but it shows that this team is more than just those two guys coming back away from competing again, which leads to my biggest point. The owner came out and said that we need to be patient. I'm saying that fans have a right to be upset. They should not. I'm not telling fans how to fan. That's not who I am. I'm not better than anybody. I'm upset with Drury too, but he's not going anywhere. We can't change that. We have no control over that. So, and if we think about it, trade-wise over the last few years, he's done really good on getting value back for those guys that he's traded away. So, this reconstruction, with the owner telling us patience, it's not going to take an offseason to do. It's going to take probably 2, at least. So, that's all I got. We're going to have to be. We have no choice. And Rand.
Yeah, not a question there, but again, it's kind of back to that stuck conversation. It's, yeah, you got to make trades and make moves if you're Chris Drury, but how are you doing it? Right? Like you have JT Miller, no move. Mika Zibanejad, no move. I think Vinny has a 12-team no trade, so maybe there's some room there to finesse something, but you got to get these guys to want to go, and that's going to be the biggest challenge unless you treat them like shit. Like most of these guys probably love New York. Their families love New York. That's been pretty well documented, and it's going to be a big uphill battle for Chris Drury to make those trades. And yeah, to Mr. Mike's point, it probably won't take one summer. It might take 2. But I think we all know that's the situation, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know that the moves that he's made to move guys out, getting value back. The value has been getting the full contract off the books, whether it's Kreider or Trouba. I can't really say for sure that you've got, I don't know that the returns on those guys have been like, well, he certainly got great players back. I mean, even the Capo Caco trade, Will Borgen is a fine, middle pair, bottom pair defenseman, but I think signing him to that contract, whatever it was after 15 games of seeing him, maybe not the way that you wanted to go, given that he hasn't really impacted them in a positive way. He's been fine, but locking yourself into another veteran player when you're in this transitional period, maybe not the best. I think at the deadline when they've been good, 22 deadline, that's an A++, where you got Andrew Cotter, you got Frank Vetrano, even Justin Braun played a big part in that season. And so, I think it's hard to say, well, yeah, if they can get these guys to move, they can trade their way out of their problems. I'm not so sure about that. You trade your way out of the contracts. Yes, he's been excellent at that, but the actual prospects or picks or whatever that have come back for some of these guys, I think it's really, these are really salary dump type situations. So I'm gonna hit the wait and see button on that one to see if if you're gonna move Panarin, let's say, yeah, you got to get something good back because you're trading your best skater essentially. And if you can get Mika to move, that's probably more of a salary situation. But then you've got to, there's got to be somebody out there.
You got to plug holes. Yeah.
You're creating holes, and I think you've created holes with Trouba and Kreider, and we've talked about it kind of to death. Like you created these are heart and soul holes, and that's been a hard. In addition to the skill and the spots that they filled, it's been hard to replace. So you got to be careful what you wish for here.
Robert,
I got nothing, man. Maybe the only thing I would add is,
it wasn't really a question.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to take some time here. This isn't going to be snap the fingers on one trade, 2 trades, and be back to winning a President's Trophy. Like I don't think that's going to be the case.
And draft picks too, right? Like if you get a good pick this year, that's going to take 2-3 years, at least. So yeah, there's no choice. Like Mr. Mike said, there's no choice unless a miracle happens. Next voicemail from Chris. This is a Islanders voicemail.
Hi, this is Chris from Hicksville. I'm calling about the Islanders, and I've heard a lot of chatter from what I would call the diehard fans, maybe looking too far ahead. They say, we all know that the odds of the Islanders re-signing JG Pageau, given the center market and with recent signings, is pretty slim. And people don't want to see a player like that walk out the door, for nothing through free agency. But the bottom line is, given where the Islanders are in the playoff standings currently, unless they were hit a big losing streak and fall out of it before the trade deadline, there is no way they can trade Pageau. You can't do that to the room, to the organization, to the all the other players. And who knows? Who knows if they make it into the playoffs? Who knows what could happen? You can't do that because you can get a late first round pick, this June or the following June, that has a 50-50 chance of becoming a decent player in 4 or 5 years. Can't do it. Just curious of your guys' thoughts. Thanks, and love the show. And also Lorraine Bracco, Hicksville alum as well. Okay, guys.
All right.
Arthur, yeah.
Good trivia there. Good Long Island trivia. I agree, and I think we've discussed it. Losing a guy for nothing cannot be your headline move. If you win 2 or 3 rounds, get to a Stanley Cup final, and JG Pageau is part of it, and you can't sign him on July 1, you didn't lose him for nothing. He helped you get pretty far in the playoffs, and he's a guy who's a money playoff player, and just maybe he'll ask for 5 years, or he'll ask for too much AAV at his age. You got to live with it. They got a good team, and you have to plan, but you can't put the plan ahead of what's happening right now. So I agree with that.
Yeah. I think you hold on to him, and you could always go find, another free agent that'll sign if you have to, right? Like there will be centers available. They might not be the best centers available, but you can go out and find a center to fill a role for 3 years before some prospects come in and are ready. If you want to hang on to him.
They might not even need a center. They have Barzal, they have Horvat, they have Cal Ritchie, and they have Casey Cizikas.
Fair.
That's a pretty good foursome. If you reinforce that with a good high-end winger, then you can live with that down the middle.
Just look at I know a lot of years going into the playoffs, a lot of fans get upset with the 2-3 matchup in the division. And this year, like the perfect example of that is probably in the Central. It's probably going to be in stone right now in Minnesota and Dallas. And that's like, oh, that's not fair. You got those are some of the best teams in the league. And that's just the way it is. I think when you look at the Islanders, you don't have that problem necessarily. Nothing's easy. Nothing is going to be a give me. But you look inside that Metro division, as of today, it would be the Washington Capitals. I like the New York Islanders' chances against the Washington Capitals. But Washington, there's no guarantee. I mean, who knows? That could be the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, do you like your opportunities and chances against them? I absolutely do if I'm the New York Islanders. So that's even more of a reason why, Arthur, you mentioned about winning a round, 2 rounds. No path is ever easy, but some of it has a little less resistance from what we've seen over the years, and this might be the year for that. So I think that's even more reason to hang on to these guys.
Plus, you got a good thing going, right? Like, just keep it rolling, like we've been saying with the Islanders. Don't force. I said don't force in adding, but don't force in getting rid of either, right? Like, don't just do it because you feel like there's pressure to do it. But yeah, they got a good thing going. So this is our last Devils voicemail, and this is from Ashling.
Hey boys, big fan of the pod. This is Ashling from Ireland, New Jersey Devils fan. Question for all three of you. We've obviously seen kind of 2 different versions of the Devils this year. Then before Jack went down with the injury, and then since he went down. Obviously in the recent stretch since he went down, they've lost a lot of games, haven't been like getting much puck luck, that kind of thing. Do we think they're closer to that? Or are they closer to the team that won 8 games in a row that season? Just curious, because, I'd like to get your thoughts and opinions on it. Keep up the good work, guys. Thank you.
Great question, and love that we
I
have a
love it.
listener from Ireland. That's awesome. So thank you,
Yes.
Ashton, for calling. I would say they're closer to the team that won the 8 in a row versus closer to the team that we're seeing now. My opinion on that, the goaltending's been a little bit shaky. Like, think about how good Jake Allen was, when we were talking about him versus Markstrom before the goaltending got a little rocky. And Markstrom, I think, there's been stretches where Markstrom's been good, but he hasn't found consistency at all this year. And again, like he was hurt in the beginning. We always reference that Colorado game where they threw him in for that first game. He got shelled. I think he let in 7, and it's just been a weird year for him since then. But as far as the Devils' consistency goes, like offensively, I feel like you're getting a consistent effort from them. Maybe you're not getting the results that you want, but the effort's there. Defensively, there's been games where they've had a lot of mental lapses, that's for sure. But I think the biggest struggle for them, over this stretch of losing has been putting the actual puck in the net, but it's not for a lack of chances. And that's why I think they're closer to the team that won the 8 in a row versus the team that's been losing, because, the puck luck can always change and go your way. Like, that's just how a season goes.
Yeah, I think that the Markstrom thing too, just I wanted to mention that when Markstrom has been good, the team has not. When the team has been good, Markstrom has not. So, I mean, it just is kind of that bad vibe of going back and forth like that. So they're going to need him to be good consistently, and they're going to have to be much better in front of him if they want to be like that team at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, good point. Anything to that, Arthur?
Yeah, real quick. I just think it's tough when you have so many guys, whether it's Jack not being 100%, or maybe not just 100% confidence that his hand is where it needs to be, Luke having a couple of bad games and trying to shake off the mental sting of getting booed at home, or Palat having a season-long malaise, Dougie in and out of the lineup, where is he going to be? I think it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle once it's out in a season. I think the Olympic break will be huge for them, because it's a long enough break where you can kind of shed the bad juju, and if Dougie's traded before then the big move has been made, and maybe they can respond by bringing somebody in with that cap space. So I feel like this next month may still be shaky for them, but I feel like if they are still within striking distance of a playoff spot, the break will be huge. Whatever changes they make will be huge. I'd bet on them to make it coming out of the break if they're able to pull something off. But I feel like right now, if things keep going the way that they are, I just feel like once the season starts, once you juggle all that stuff out of a secure spot in your hands, it's hard to pick up the pieces.
We only have time for a couple more voicemails, so I apologize if we don't get to all of them. But we have a couple more Ranger ones and one more Islander voicemail, no more Devils. So Devils fans, you can rest. But let's go to Nicole. Don't tune out, but don't sit here waiting anxiously. Let's go to Nicole, who has a Ranger voicemail.
Hey guys, very dejected Rangers fan here. Obviously, the injuries to Fox and Shesterkin are escalating things quickly in terms of this season going down the drain. But I guess my question is 2 parts. One, in terms of the leadership, would you say it's alarming how often JT Miller speaks after a game as the captain of the team, saying he needs to be a better leader? Like, we all obviously appreciate accountability, and it's great that he holds himself to that standard. And I'm here to listen on, production on the ice. If you're not, producing and you want to take accountability for specific plays, that's great. But to constantly say that you have to be a better leader as the captain is a bit concerning to me. And then part 2, I guess, is just about the way this team's playing. Like, to me, it's like all those early season should have won games because they played the right way but couldn't score is catching up to them. And they're playing with this frustration that's almost making them force plays and grip sticks tighter, and the defensive plays getting out of control. And you just almost wonder, is it just starting to hurt them? It's not like you say they're a team that's a better team than on paper than they are, and they had a bad 10-2 outing against the Bruins and they came out hungry. It's like they're almost spiraling themselves with how they're playing with this frustration. And I kind of had a feeling earlier this year it was all going to catch up to them, where the lack of scoring early on was going to force them into bad habits. So just wanted your thoughts.
Really good voicemail. I mean, no notes on that. I'll give my quick spiel here, but like the JT stuff about holding himself accountable as a captain, it's his first time being a captain. So I think, this is new for him. He's also the captain of an Original Six franchise. Like there's a lot of pressure that comes with that in New York City. So I think him saying, I need to be a better leader is like genuine judgment of himself, learning in this role for the first time. One of the things that Chris Drury and Mike Sullivan said when they gave him the captaincy was, we want JT Miller to be himself and not be anything else. That's why he's wearing the C. So I think he's almost learning about himself through these struggles too. So I'm not going to judge him too harsh on that. On the second part, I think the big thing in Rupper, you can definitely back me on this. I don't know if you've been on as many shitty teams as I have, but my freshman year, we literally lost 17 games in a row at UMass.
Wow.
And every game.
And you guys only played like 25.
We played 30. Like 30. Like, no, the whole, we won our first game after Christmas break and lost the rest of the way. Like, it was horrible. But when you're on teams that go into every game genuinely thinking they're going to win. And then there are teams that go into a game thinking, fuck, I hope we don't lose again tonight. It's just going in with a mindset where I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully we win, but I'm not confident that we will. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting from the Rangers locker room right now. It's just a bunch of hope and not a bunch of belief. And I think you can see that on the ice that, again, that goes back to what Mika said. Nobody has the answer. And before games, I think they're going in there not confident that they're going to win. And that is just human nature. That is contagious energy. And that is hard to beat.
No, it's so true. I thought Nicole had a great read on, like, when you watch this season, there's so many games early on that they deserved better. Like they deserved better.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, it's about getting the 2 points or not. Those days seem like they're long gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not really that. Like, every game felt like I remember coming into NHL Network and being like, I just can't believe what I'm watching. Like, they dominate. They can't score. Like, they're dominating a game. Can't win. Can't score. And this was all obviously around home ice. And it doesn't feel like that anymore. So I don't know if that's caught up, if that's been like, now they're trying to force those things. I thought it was a great read by Nicole again, that it just is, it feels different now. And at the end of the day, it's still a mess on your hands. You got to figure it out, and you're still in the thick of it here. But it's a delicate spot, because I do think there has been a shift. I mean, and you talk about being in your own head and not having any words post game. Like, these things are real, and I think they're going through all of that.
Mm-hmm. Arthur, anything?
Yeah, and to Nicole's first point, because the second one, like you said, no notes. That's a great breakdown. Johnny, you're in the locker room. I'm in the locker room many times over the years. There's guys that are assigned to go out after games.
Yeah.
It's not everybody sitting at their locker. And I give JT credit. I'm sure he's not always on the board there to go out, and he probably insists on going out, especially after the bad games, to take the responsibility on himself. I'm betting that there's people behind the scenes, coaches or whoever, saying, you need to stop doing that. You need to stop beating yourself up publicly every night after a loss, because you got to put that stuff somewhere. There's, whether you're driving an Amazon truck or doing a stupid ass podcast or you're captain of the Rangers, you can't keep having that self-flagellation every night. It's good. It builds up. But you've seen Trocheck do it, and I think when Jacob Trouba was captain, he would come out pretty much after every game and make himself available, especially after the bad ones. I don't think that it's a group of bad guys that wants to hide after a loss, and it's only JT Miller standing out there taking the arrows. So I think he's doing it voluntarily, and I think for his future benefit, like you said, Johnny, he's figuring it out. I think he's got to learn to temper it a little bit and let some of these other guys that are part of a bad team take the heat too. You got to let everybody share in the bad stuff, because you're all going to certainly share in the good stuff when it comes.
Mm-hmm. One more voicemail that we have time for. Sorry for the people who called that we didn't get to, but the last one will be from Ariel, and it's an Islander voicemail. I have a guess of what it's going to be about.
Hey guys, Barzell is obviously invaluable to the power play for controlled entries, but once the zone is set, is keeping him stapled to the half wall the best use of his skill set? Would the power play benefit from moving him off the wall into a more dynamic rotating role to force defenders to actually adjust? Curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
So I knew it would be about Barzal. Ariel always has the Barzal questions, but I don't know. Just to kind of question the question, I don't know what the more dynamic role would be. I feel like when you're on the half wall, that like allows you to be the most dynamic on the power play because you have the ability to go down to the goal line. You can rotate with the goal line guy. You can come up top and have Schaefer go underneath and whatnot. You kind of have the room to do whatever it is creative that you want to do when you're on the half wall. Like if he's quarterbacking the power play, he's not really a threat for a one-timer from the top. And I think PKers would know that and wouldn't give him that respect. So I just, with that question particularly, I don't think there's a better spot for him. I don't know if you guys feel differently.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say just really quickly that I get what Ariel's saying, that it looks static. I think that's what she means, that he's not freelancing enough maybe. And I think this is Matthew Schaefer's first year in the NHL, his first year running a power play. I think once they get more in sync, they can have those exchanges. They can kind of cross up the two PK forwards a little bit more. But I think for now, they really their main success as a power play over the last couple of years, and it's not been much success, is really force feeding Horvat in the bumper.
Yeah,
they used to have Brock Nelson on the opposite side as more of a trigger man in the other circle. They don't have him. They have Heineman. I think he's not really been a power play guy for a long time, so they're trying to get him accustomed to it. Or Jonathan Drouin, who's really more of a distributor. Palmieri, I think, was a volume shooter below the dots. He's out, so you're going more to Anders Lee as the net front guy. I just think the consistency just hasn't been there. So I think Barzy is trying to do a lot from one spot as opposed to moving his feet, trying to get some PKs crossed up. But I think Schaefer's, he's still new at this, and everything else has been about his game has been unbelievable and super smooth. And I think that's the one area where you got to work at it and get some time in and get some experience to really have those, have some guys moving a little bit more.
I think it's much easier to try to free up and get more movement from a shooter than it is a distributor or a playmaker that Barzy is, because you could see it. I mean, I always thought, geez, you get some of the superstars in the league that maybe get lost on the weak side a little bit. You're all puck focused, looking one way, and you've got a dangerous shooter behind you. And that's how you can get real creative in the way you kind of run things or just be unpredictable. You need the puck in Barzy's hands. It has to be there. And so it's hard. I don't have an answer to that. I think it's hard to be creative. How do we get Barzy doing more things? A lot of times that happens when you give up the puck, and now it's you're moving away from the puck, and he needs the puck and usually has the puck for long durations on that power play. So yeah, I don't know what that answer is. Maybe it's having Bo in there because he can be a distraction in that bumper position. Maybe it's ways, but I just, if there's a way, and those guys inside that room, they watch clips all day long and know this personnel. If you could find a way to get Barzal moving more, I think it's all the difference in the world. And they just have him moving, because then it becomes now you're puck focused on him. And think of how much more that opens up for some other people. Just again, I always say it, be less predictable. Less predictability. And Barzy, when he has the puck, he's pretty unpredictable in different facets of his game. I'd like to see a little more of that on the power play.
And I think why he can't go on his strong side flank, like the reason why he's on his one-time flank, because, as a right-handed shot myself, I remember it was so much easier when I had a right-handed shot as the quarterback, because let's say I'm climbing the wall and I get a pass in my forehand and I don't have anything when I'm going down, you can always kind of bump it behind your back to the right-handed shot for a one-timer. Like, guys love walking into a one-timer on that behind the back play. But when you have a lefty, that option is taken away. because Schaefer's not walking into that. It's just, it is interesting how the right-handed, left-handed thing works in the power play, and how just having your stick on one side versus the other side gives you so many more or so many less options. It's crazy.
That's the Adam Oates. Adam Oates has been working with the guys over the years on the power play optics and different things you see. And his big thing that I've heard that from talking to guys who've worked with him is, and it's a little bit different in this situation because I think a lot of it's based off who your trigger man is, who's your shooter, whoever that is, that side flank, the guy you want the puck in his hand, the guy up top has to shoot the same way. And that it gives you just so many different options, and it allows you to play a little cat and mouse up top a little bit more. And it does matter when you get that lefty righty. It just makes it buys more time for the penalty killer. You can cheat a little bit more. So it's again, they're gonna have to figure it out because Matthew Schaefer is going to be a power play guy and Barzy's going to be out there. So you got to kind of figure this out. But maybe it's about getting the correct lefty out there in the other spot on the other side of the ice.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Well said. Any final thoughts, guys? I know we don't have much time here for the rest of today's show. The Rangers play Ottawa at MSG tonight. The Devils are home against Seattle at the Prue. I got to get to MSG here for that game. And then the Islanders tomorrow there in Edmonton. As always, this show is sponsored by Novig, the future of sports betting. On Novig, you play against other real users, not the house, and it's the only commission-free exchange. So you keep every dollar you win. You'll get better odds than traditional sports books, meaning you're 10 times more likely to win in the long run. So choose the best odds or offer your own. Trade Novig coins for fun or Novig cash to win real prizes. Sign up with code DailyFaceoff in all caps to get $50 in Novig coins when you spend $5 on your first purchase. Available in most states. Must be 21 or older to play with no purchase necessary. No bet tonight. We love you guys. So happy we did this bonus episode. Again, sorry to the people who we didn't get to for the voicemails, but thank you for leaving the voicemails because we love them and we try to get to as many as we can. Thanks to our producer, Vic, and we'll talk to you on Friday. Hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see some more Tri-State hockey content, don't forget to leave a like and comment on the video below, and also subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel.